So today we're going to talk a little bit about improvisation. We're going to talk about one of the most important concepts that I think everyone should be practicing, regardless of whether you're very good at this or you're just starting out. I really don't like how improvisation is taught on the internet, generally speaking. It gets way too theory heavy, and most of the time improvisation is all about tuning your ears in to interesting sounds and being able to replicate those sounds very, very quickly without much thought. So it's mostly ear-based, and then the rest of it is to do with your fretboard knowledge and how you can manipulate all of those scales. We talk way too much about scales as guitarists, we talk way too much about theory as guitarists, and it's important to ditch that sometimes and really focus on the most important thing you can work on as a musician, which is your ear. So how do you do this? We've got an E Dorian backing track going on in the background here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a note in E Dorian. So that note is going to be your flat third in the scale of E Dorian. And I'm just going to try and get used to what it sounds like to land there in a lot of my improvised phrasing on the end of a phrase. Give this a go yourself, but also listen to me try and replicate this, okay? Etc. Right? We're going to try the same thing now, but this time I'm going to try and land on a different note. I'm going to try and land on the fourth of E Dorian, okay? The key thing here is listen to how this sounds, not, oh, where is the fourth, I need to find the fourth on the fretboard. Really try and tune into what that note sounds like. So that's what the fourth sounds like in that scale. It creates quite a lot of tension in this case, which is cool. And then again, if you want to use that deliberately, you have to know how that sounds and how to resolve your phrases into it. Let's try the flat 7. So again, you get this kind of unfinished sound, the flat 7, which again is quite useful. Useful to know that, because again, if you want to land there, you want to run your next phrase into something else, it might be good to land on the flat 7, so that the next phrase leads in a bit easier and you're not finalising your ideas. Let's land on the 1. This is one of these things a lot of people do by instinct, and actually is probably not a good idea. So something like this. Yeah. So again, what happens there is that every phrase sounds very finished, and that can actually be a problem, because if you're finishing all of your phrases like that, it's really hard to play the next thing in a way that's cohesive with what you just played, because you've finished everything. It's like putting a full stop on the end of a sentence, which is not always what you want. So let's try something else now. Let's try one more we haven't done, the fifth. So that's ending on the fifth, and again, that's quite nice in the way that it stops you from finishing phrases. It sounds a little more unfinished, just like the flat seven does, which in a way lets you lead stuff into the next phrase a little bit easier. And there's probably another one I haven't done. I haven't done the major six. I'll do that quickly. So that will be landing on the major six of that scale. Hopefully you can see that creates some tension with what you're doing. Now, it's really important to watch what you're doing here in terms of finding the notes on the fretboard, but the point I made earlier stands really strong here, which is do not try and do everything by fretboard knowledge. What you need to do is know how these things sound so that you have this intuition in your head that can automatically play a phrase that sounds good when it goes to the fourth, or when it goes to the fifth, or when it goes to the flat seven in that scale. Ideally, we want that intuition on every single scale we know how to play and over every single chord change. And you don't build that up by just learning the fretboard, because learning the fretboard doesn't give you any of that. What learning the fretboard does is just tell you where some of the nicer notes are, but it doesn't train your ear at all. And this is one of the issues I just really want to talk about towards the end of this video, which is guitarists, generally speaking, are so obsessed with visual information that they really forget all of the other musical principles of which they need to learn, one of which is really get good at ear training. Now, among my own private students, this is something that I often kick everyone's ass with, because I end up just giving them a very basic ear training problem to solve, like something like, oh, you know, end on the fourth and these phrases on the fourth, or end these phrases on the offbeat, or something like that. Do you know how that sounds on rhythmically as opposed to melodically? And almost every single time that throws even players who have been playing for 15, 16 years. And it's really interesting to me, as someone with quite a lot of teaching experience now, that no matter how experienced the player is, I can't seem to find people who can do these things very well. So this is a bit of a black hole for guitarists. It's one of these things that it seems not many people are paying attention to. They're all about fretboard knowledge, about cage boxes, they're about, you know, interval systems, and they're arguing over which is better, which one is faster, etc., to improvise with. But at the end of the day, your solos are always going to sound shit unless you have a good ear. So work on your ear, and this is ear training here. We're trying to see how these things sound, not how they look on the instrument. Give it a go.